Dr. Chiu, uh,
Hello.
how
Hello, hello.
can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay,
Yeah, that's not for you to edit out, but yes, I can hear you.
perfect.
Okay.
How was your day? How was your day?
Very busy.
Busy?
Yeah,
Yeah, I had a great day too.
that's excellent.
I went to a family friend's house.
Uh-huh.
In fact, I also received feedback on our last episode.
Oh,
Box
good. Good.
talked to a family friend, and
Uh-huh.
she said that if we had introduced ourselves and gave a bit of reference of to who we are as people, the
Mhm.
podcast would be much better. So, there,
Yeah, that's why you need to ask, 10 people and you might get 20 opinions. The same person might change their view.
uh-huh.
Yeah, that's how life is, right?
Yeah, and I think that's reflects heavily on building Box to Path that there's going to be so many opinions, so many views that I think we just have to keep on going and see what works. It doesn't
We're
work.
in unexplored territory.
Completely unexplored.
Yeah, I mean, you've often asked me questions
Uh-huh.
that come from someone who's inexperienced.
Yes.
and it's natural. Nothing wrong with you there. It's
Hmm.
natural, right? I was in a conversation this morning about someone had created a way to teach students, and basically like they could watch this video and they would know how to do certain physics problems and other ones, and he was bringing up how a teacher really disliked that. So it was totally ineffective, no good. Takes the social aspect out of it. Um, and everything that was negative about it, they would bring up. And they couldn't say anything good about it. They were
Hmm.
complaining about Khan Academy and
Kind
how
of.
how
That's.
everything should just be relying on the teacher at schools. Like how much you learn, should you whatever the teacher tells you. And that's out of respect for the teacher. And that's like really, really important. And they were convinced that things like Khan Academy and videos and other people teaching kids outside of the classroom is wrong.
I think that's completely wrong
Oh
because
yeah?
and
That's great. I'm glad you have an opinion on this. Like you seem to have a strong opinion about this too.
so I'm in AI. I
Hmm.
develop apps in AI, and I'll tell you,
You're in AI?
as in I'm building products in artificial intelligence,
Hmm.
and there is no better teacher than ChatGPT. No,
Hmm.
you just cannot beat it.
Right. So do you know what this teacher or possibly other teachers would feel? Like why are they against that?
I don't know. I think it's because one, I mean, they shouldn't be against it because at the end goal is to help students learn, be better thinkers, be smarter. And if AI is helping them, I don't see the problem.
You don't see the problem, huh? But before AI, there was like Khan Academy, and teachers were against that too.
They're against Khan Academy.
Oh yeah. Khan Academy faced a lot of challenges. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well,
what do you think is the reason for that?
I think it's because job replacement that
Ah.
teachers might lose their jobs, which in
Hmm.
shouldn't be because they're teaching for students, which and Khan Academy is just a helping tool.
Okay, so let's go through this real thinking, all right?
Yeah.
Khan Academy is a widely used online educational platform, right?
Hmm.
Um, and it's global. So here are the criticisms. Pedagogical concerns, right? So its focus on procedural knowledge is argued that it offers step-by-step procedural problem solving. And you
Hmm.
say, well, what's wrong with that, right?
Yeah. What is wrong with that?
This is why you're so young. How old are you now?
18.
Right, 18. All right. So the critics argue that that's wrong. That's bad. All right. What's bad about it? It doesn't foster a deeper conceptual understanding of the topic, especially in math.
Hmm.
And did you learn a deeper conceptual understanding while you're in school?
I did not.
Oh, so there you go. So, that's why that's why you were right, and they are right if school did provide a deeper conceptual knowledge. Could how long was your math class?
Third, 45 minutes. 45
Right.
minutes.
So, and how many students were in the math class?
30.
30 in 45 minutes. And how many teachers were teaching you in the math class?
One teacher.
Right. Usually the answer is one. All right. So one versus 30. And so if someone asked a question for 5 minutes, right? Well, they ask a question and then the teacher answers, and totally it takes 5 minutes, let's say. So if we had like four students ask those questions, that would take up 20 minutes of class, losing almost 50% of the time,
Hmm.
right? But without asking questions, basically you are only emphasizing step-by-step procedurals, right? In some ways.
That's where AI comes in. You can ask it a numerous number of questions,
Hmm.
and it will explain it to you start to finish beautifully.
Hmm.
So
Okay. So yeah, so then the other argument against Khan Academy was a one size fits all approach.
one size fits all.
Right. So they're teaching, you watch the video, and that video might not work for some people. So it doesn't offer interaction and tailored teaching methods in case, the student is and the learner is struggling with a traditional format.
Hmm.
Hmm. What do you think of that?
I again think that's where AI can come in. It solves that problem too. So
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Ask ChatGPT, explain it to me like you would to a fifth grader, and the responses it outputs are exactly how you would explain it to a fifth grader. So
Uh-huh. So that's that, so AI is the new Khan Academy, right?
100%.
Okay. So so then let's bring that teacher up again, right? So, what is there anything wrong using their mindset against AI, right? And people would say that AI systems focus on solving problems using a specific algorithm or method, which leads to rote memorization rather than a deeper understanding of the concept. And especially in math, students learn to solve the equations but struggle to understand the real world applications or even underlying principles.
I think that reflects, I believe it reflects on just how the education system is structured. They don't have time to go in deep. They're taking 7 courses. They're in boys
Hmm.
taekwondo, volleyball,
Taekwondo. Why do
kumon,
you need that? Don't they have police out there?
I guess. But with all this going on, do you really think they have the time to go in deep, even if they wanted to?
I think the latter problem is if they want to now, because because it's just not like after so many hours in class sitting there, and also it's not just 1 year that you've been sitting in school for a long time, right?
I have.
So so then you start wondering in your head, why am I learning to do this? Didn't my grandfather and grandmother learn this before and they don't remember anything? And then your rich uncle, he doesn't remember anything, but he's rich. I'm going to remember all this, but I might not even have enough money to do the things I want.
Hmm.
Okay, so now in math, the argument is students struggle to understand these real world applications. But beyond that, teaching is not just about delivering the content. It involves understanding the student's emotional and motivational needs, and AI cannot provide encouragement, doesn't provide empathy or personal feedback that a human can offer.
Uh-huh.
What do you think of that?
I think that's important, and I think that's why we need to combine AI in teaching. We need to bring AI into the classrooms to help.
Yeah, but what about those teachers who um who are human, right? But they don't encourage and they don't empathize. They don't offer personalized feedback because they only have so much time. There's only 45 minutes, like you said. So maybe it's even the structure, right? So what happens to those teachers that then like let's say you had AI and teachers and you'd rank them all, and then you'd lose some teachers who couldn't rank because now AI is taking up some slots. What happens to those teachers?
Mm, I think they have to find a different job.
Oh, so you're gonna just eliminate them, huh? You don't, after what you went through, you think that, nope, if you want me to get all these A's, then I want only A plus level teachers. Is
I
that
mean,
true?
we should do with those teachers if AI is
I mean,
them.
what's wrong with you? Why can't you accept teachers with an F minus being your teacher?
Would you accept it, Dr. Chiu?
You've reversed the question. I asked you first.
Uh, well, why I would accept it if they know what they're talking about.
What's wrong with having an F minus teacher? Isn't there nothing good about that?
Can they teach?
Should they?
I don't think they should. No.
I mean, I homeschool my kids and I teach them nothing.
Your kids play piano. They're very intelligent.
Yeah, but I didn't teach them that because I don't know how to play the piano. And I didn't teach them how to write Chinese because I can't write Chinese or read Chinese.
How did they learn for
They
you to?
learned on their own. Part of it, of course, is their mom, but most of it isn't, right? And so they now know how to write some words that mom doesn't know. And they certainly compose music that mom never wrote or composed or played. So what really is very interesting, right, is that the fact that algebra is 4,000 years ago and that and that arithmetic has been 20,000 years old, depending on how you calculate arithmetic, right? And then calculus has been 400 years ago, and giving people number one awards in valedictorians and salutatorians and things like that, salutatorians, that's been around for a very, very long time. But it doesn't mean that that person is happy. Doesn't mean that they're capable. Um, and likewise, it doesn't mean that someone who has a degree in teaching is a great teacher. But
Exactly.
right, but AI, if we let AI into the classrooms, it must be to solve that problem. Like maybe okay, so make teaching faster. That's one thing, right? The internet certainly said we can make it faster, but did it solve the problem?
No, it's not.
No. So faster doesn't solve the problem. And and then what if the teacher starts saying like the existing like I'm being bullied now? Not just by AI. That's just one of the tools, but I'm being bullied by the system because I went and became a teacher thinking I would have summers off and I have a good life. And then COVID came and now I have to teach online. I have to use all these tools. I thought I was just supposed to teach. Oh my goodness, teaching sucks. And they start saying that, right? And they feel like they're being bullied.
Hmm.
And it's like, where did all this stuff come from? When F minus teaching, I mean, F minus could be F minus in many ways, right? In fact, the teacher is favoring one student over another. That's an F minus too, as far as being equal, right? But our urgency and our desire to find the number one top performers and saying we want to hire those people. And as there's more AI, those who are not top, those who are somewhat flawed may either be eliminated or it might be protective though, because AI is just going to go for perfect. And some parts of F minus might actually be really good. Like I'm an F minus teacher of piano, and I'm an F minus teacher of other things. But somehow my kids think I'm A plus in motivating them.
F minus adds a unique mix to the entire pool because
Mhm.
we just had AI teaching these kids. We don't know. They would all be the same. They would all learn the same.
My kids say to me, like, you don't know how to read and write Chinese, but you do all these Chinese shows and you make mistakes too on what you say. Um, and you call a lot of things this and that because you don't know what the words are for this for that item. Like, you don't know the name of the book, the name of the movie, the medical terms and other things. You just don't know a lot. And I said, yeah. And they started saying to me that like that when they were 7. And I
Uh,
said, you want to know why I do this? It's too late for me, because if I went and studied all this language and made it perfect, then I wouldn't be able to provide food for you on the table, right? So why do you do this then? Why don't you just focus on the things you're good at? Because I know it's important for you, and I want to leave the options open for you. So I happen to be your dad that doesn't sing. Well, I happen to be your dad that doesn't read Chinese well. And you know the most powerful move I'm going to make for you, most powerful, is when I walk on the campus with you, like at Wharton and at Harvard, and then I'm no longer there on your side. But you've walked those steps, and I've been with you, and I videoed that. But the most powerful move is for me to vanish by your side. So
uh-huh.
those memories that I've uploaded and I've stored them in different places so that you can access them. I've created all these videos on YouTube, all these interviews, so that you can always hear my voice. And one day, maybe you can use the AI system to recreate me and tell it what to say to you. I don't know. But when you miss me enough, that's how I have to not be here for you to truly miss me that much.
Using AI to recreate passed away people.
I want them to see, I see value in the F minus because that's contrast, right? You then learn, oh wow, I I can learn from that person, right?
Uh,
Like you can learn from anything. Learning comes from within, right? So for example, bullying is another really interesting topic because the teacher could be viewing that going to teach every day is like being bullied by the students in the classroom. Like they don't want to learn. Why force them to? But that's their job. Like your job is to like to grade them and do things. So they all meet and follow a system and a set of rules. And even the teachers, some of them know that in the future, all these degrees won't have jobs waiting for them. Right. So one could say that the bullying of teachers by students is a byproduct of mass education. And one could also say that when you're a student and you're being bullied by your peers, that's also a byproduct of mass education. Because if you were hand selecting whoever bullies you, they shouldn't be put in the room. And the all that like there's so much unhappiness in the whole ecosystem that bullying stuff, that feeling of tension, let's call it tension, is through the forced cohesion. Like people who don't want to listen to this conversation, don't listen to it. Right. So, there's so many conversations to listen to. And what we are creating here is a magnet of those who want to just be open and talk about it. Like if we survive this, the crickets out there, we survive and people start coming here and they start sharing about their topics, then we have now created this magnet, this safe place for all those of varying abilities, varying personalities, to varying socioeconomic backgrounds, so that we can talk about this. But mass education forces that cohesion, and while putting up this goal of you need to be valedictorian, otherwise it doesn't count. really, right? Or okay, 10%, top 10%. Or okay, let's get into the Ivy Leagues. And I can there are so many failure examples of that not doing well in society throughout history, right? That there's no argument for it now, is that mass anything comes at a cost.
Correct.
Yeah. AI is not going to take away the systemic challenges of education. Um, Schools are under-resourced. They're not teaching family values. The family's not there to teach the family values because the parents are busy. They're working, constantly working. And then the efficiencies of the internet and online, they got to answer emails. They got to look at their phone. They got responsibilities, especially on Sunday, and turn in stuff on Monday. And so, yeah, I mean, all this as we continue to go is self-managed anyway. Constantly dealing with self-management, right? So schools are under-resourced on so many, but so are families. And then when you have a system like that, you're going to have peer-to-peer aggression. You're going to have teacher to student aggression. And then you also have student to teacher, S2T aggression, because like everybody's frustrated, right? And
This
and
fr
what are the sick going to do? They're just going to be angry, mad as hell.
this frustration comes from the reason that there's so much opportunities that are lost. Some people have opportunities, some people don't.
That's
And
not my problem, the teacher will say, because look, I'm always going to just be a teacher. You're going to go off and learn AI and you're going to go get rich.
uh-huh.
So, unless they're mature enough to understand, wait a minute, you chose to be a teacher. I didn't choose it for you. You're supposed to do your job. Well, that makes them even angrier, right? Because what do you mean I'm supposed to do my job? Yeah, that's what I mean. It's just as simple as that. You do your job. You chose that job, but the problem is it doesn't work like that because they're people too. And and you know how to teach high school, you actually have to have a degree in a master's in teaching high school. So now you spent another 2 years of your life after college just so you could have the right to be a teacher.
And you still get treated very poorly.
Yeah. And you were just mistreating these teachers about AI and Khan Academy. Like these are rivals to
Uh,
their status quo, their complacency. They're already unhappy, and you're going to introduce another. I'm not saying one is right or wrong. It's just that this forced cohesion and mass education system already has all this unhappiness. You introduce that, they feel threatened. It's going to lead to more unhappiness. And you don't just remove all these unhappy people. They're still there. Some of them have tenure, so they're just going to be there. So we're just going to create all these like hotspots throughout the environment.
but
Um,
I want to pivot, Dr. Chu, to a
mm,
very insightful question that just crossed my mind.
mm,
You've taught at a private school and
yeah,
you've been to public.
two, two of them.
Yeah, I think one of the best horsemen, if I'm not mistaken.
Number two in the country.
Correct. And you went to public school as a kid.
I went to parochial, which is a type of private, as well as public.
Uh-huh.
I went to public, then parochial, then public again.
Nice. So do
Isn't
you
that nice?
uh,
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think that might have been a bit rude, but
No, I laugh at everything now.
okay.
Yeah.
So you've seen both sides of the coin.
Uh-huh.
Do you think AI is going to equalize the education level that you get in public school and private school, make it more equal? Do you think AI has that capability?
I went to study AI at Harvard.
Correct.
So I have a very special view of the whole situation,
Uh-huh.
right? I also run a prep school. So that makes it even more interesting. And then I talked about being an undercover parent on TED. TEDx that made it onto TED.com. A lot of people speak on TEDx and it doesn't make it there. So whatever I said must have attracted enough attention and waiting to do that. And then I did something really bizarre. At the executive level, I chose to go to the Ivy Leagues, but at the undergraduate level, um, I chose not to. I was actually offered and accepted at the graduate level, but I chose not to because it was too far. And I think I've mentioned that it's not worth it. So I basically switched to Seton Hall, even though I was accepted to Columbia. And then I did one dropout of MD PhD, which is a hard thing to do in funding and getting that funded. And I dropped out and I dropped into naturopathic medicine. So I still finished with doctor and still finished with being able to heal. But then I don't open any practice of healing. And I use the naturopathic side to
Hmm.
work on graphene, creating the only naturopathic graphene scientist in the world. And then the accomplishment was that discovered a way to make graphene that the earth was making anyway and got a patent for that and was able to license it and brought $40 million to the state of New Jersey, et cetera, et cetera. So you're seeing, you see, I am a weird, very, very weird and strange person when it comes to thinking about um, any
Yeah,
topic,
it's
any topic, right? But when it comes to education,
uh-huh.
right? What you're doing, and I also have children, so I'm not just speaking, without any you know, and any ties with this topic, right? My tie is a parent, and I look at the degree. When you go and get a degree, your first degree is your high school degree. That diploma is actually a degree. It's a degree that you're an expert in high school. That's what it is. But it only works for the year that you graduate, and then it might not apply for even the next year. Because information and even how you do the problems changes. Um, and they're constantly altering that education um, pedestal to make it, you want to clear those hurdles.
Uh-huh.
Just because you went to high school 10 years ago doesn't mean you'll do well in high school now. In fact, an example of that was when I took an exam for an AP level chemistry exam. I got a 5, which is a perfect score. Actually, I got perfect on my AP chemistry because I have chemistry background. But when I took the IB exam, which is International Baccalaureate, written by the British system,
Hmm.
I got a C.
Wow.
Yeah. And when I took it again, I got an F.
Uh-huh.
And when I took it the third time, I scored perfectly.
Hmm.
Because by that time I understood, oh, that's what you mean in British. That's what you mean in British. That's what you mean in British. And as I was figuring it out, I would fluctuate a bit, you know.
Uh-huh.
So I'm totally very understanding of students, right? And I raised the whole rank of one of the schools I taught at 9 through 12. First
Hmm.
man was grade 6, but I get it. I get it. Look, none of us are perfect. We all came in with nothing in this world. Some of us will have stuff because our parents will give it to us, and others, our parents have a lot and they won't give us anything. There's like very wealthy people who don't leave anything to their children, right? Come to Box the Path. Let's fix that for you because it's like, do you understand what that means for your children? And so when I was surveying kids in class to remember their names, right, I would always add a survey. The names and one of my survey questions was, "Will you have children?" And I write your name and your answer, right? So I would have their name and their answer, remember their name, but I would also see their answer, and it would be no, 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 no. Like 95% of my class and different classes. I taught 6 classes, and they
Hmm.
all were no's at the private school.
Hmm.
95%, not 100%. And then my next survey question was, if your inheritance depended on you having children, what would your answer be? And answers became yes, 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 yes. Yeah. Wow. what a huge realization. So you're going to have children so that you can tap in that inheritance.
Uh-huh.
And boy, it helped me remember names and help them connect with me because here's a teacher asking questions like that. And of course, if I'm going to ask you questions like that, you need to have my phone number. So they all had my phone number. Yeah. At the end, 900 kids had my phone number and I never received any prank calls.
Crazy.
Yeah. We
But
lived together. I was their house parent. I saw them. They were gaming all night long. Like every day right after classes, a group of them would just game all night long.
hmm
Yeah. And I said, I'm going to have a problem here because you didn't go and try to spend any time learning this. So the stuff come to class and be totally wasted. They roll out of bed and right into the classroom, right? But at the same time, now that I understand this, I've got to make the class a lot more interesting, a lot more effective because I know you're going to go back to the gaming, right?
Uh-huh.
So if there's one thing I want you to take away with you, right? That kind of thing. And then I would have to knock on their door because the school would cut the internet,
Uh-huh.
so they couldn't game after a certain curfew time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So it was like forced cohesion. So I brought forced cohesion in there because it's you if you don't teach to the heart and the soul, especially the soul, you end up creating these monsters. And it's just like, okay, you're a monster that now can code.
Uh,
Um, so what? Just like once upon a time, if you could mine gold and knew how to crawl a mine and get gold, and that was something. Um, yeah, and once upon a time in ancient history, there was this person called Hagar, and if you could have a child, then now you're important. So throughout history, we've always tortured different people.
uh-huh.
Um, and then we've insulted them. And then there's always like religion that says you shouldn't do that. Be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another as God forgave you, right? And they would talk, don't repay evil for evil. There's things like that too. But and then even in Islam, you don't insult one another and don't call each other by offensive names, and that's in the Quran, right? So why is there all this tension then in the world? And then in religion, they talk about this, and they've been talking about this for a long, long time. And is it maybe it's in human nature that when we're do you know how many levels of the brain there are? Did
No,
they tell you that in school?
no, they did not tell me.
So when you go to school and you learn all this stuff, you're feeding and building up your forebrain, like your the thing that makes you be able to control your addictions and various things and higher order level of thinking. That's why you go and learn all these things like calculus and physics and biology. So, start having respect for your environment. And then there's the mammalian brain. And that brain is just because you're a mammal, it keeps everything going. And then below that, right at your cerebellum, um, and your spine, your spinal cord area, right there, that's your reptilian brain. And that's where you bully people and they bully you and you have aggression and so yeah, so those are all actively working, by the way. And so
Yeah.
if you're being challenged by someone who's not really um, uh, uh, good to you and it gets built up, whether at home or at school, and then you're going to want to pick on someone and so that you feel better about yourself. It's like a natural response. It's been throughout history that it's happening. Why do you think you're any special that you won't run into that, right? Especially if we're going to mishmash all these people from the same town and stuff them into that system. I mean, as long as we have more and more tension, if the weather is warmer than it used to be, or if if dad lost their job, whatever it is, whatever the trigger, you might get more bullying, you know,
Uh-huh.
and you do. And so they've been studying all this is that you could read all of these things that have been written for ages, thousands of years. You're not going to empathize and have compassion when you can't even take care of yourself. You're not going to forgive and reconcile if you want to hit somebody. punch them out. Um, you're not going to stand up for justice because maybe you enjoy this. And like just like we're creating a community around here, there's some famous communities have been created that talk about how they they just want to be homeless. They enjoy being homeless and just having like just flinging themselves and doing nothing as a human species. And they went to an Ivy League and they backpack around Europe and they just like that's all they do. And there's a lot of people who come out and say, I enjoy that. So see, force cohesion. Maybe you just let those people go to that Zoom or that YouTube channel. And then the ones that want to come here, they come here. We're building something different. We're not doing backpacking in Europe and then living inside the Tesla and charging that at charging stations and we're going to be homeless. But
Uh-huh.
there is some truth to being homeless though in a Tesla. Is that if you took that model and applied it to living with your parents, and then saving up your money, if that were a topic, then you could actually save at a much faster rate because living out there independently has a big cost to it. And if you could work on your family tension moments, right? And then everybody is happier and healthier, both sides, all sides, then you're going to save a lot more. And instead of viewing as everybody needs to have independently their own home, that's why we have home shortages and others. We only learn to take kindergarten more often, right? Kindergarten, when you have nothing, you're gonna just take other people's toys. But once you have your cortex developed and you're now going to learn about all these subject matters, coding other, you're not going to take from others. You still might though. I mean, so because remember, there's the reptilian side, and that might not be very well controlled by you because just get rid of people don't steal when they're fully fed and then when and then if they still do there's a psychological issue and you address that but a lot of the stuff we're dealing with in society is not from the lack of abundance, it's a
Mm-hmm.
lack of love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean I had a student that broke up with his girlfriend and he wouldn't go to class and he was just and I got him to come back to class. I had to speak with the other girl that dumped him, and I said, "You can't dump him now. I mean, why did you dump him now? Are you leaving? No, we only have half a year left. Well, is there an issue?" And then we talked it out. She actually
Uh,
cares a lot about him, so they got back together, and he thanked me for it. I had to do some of that as a teacher.
I think that relates back to the F minus subject you brought up. Sometimes we do
Yeah.
minus teachers. AI can do that, can it?
No, AI can't do that. I told my own dad I want to be an F minus father because it is in the F minus that I still, and if you still love me because I'm an F minus in piano, that's great because, right? That's great because it's not, you don't love me because of my piano. That's great. That's even greater, right? So, yeah, why do you love me? And why do I love you? It's beyond the paper goods. It's beyond what's on a report card. In fact, let's do this experiment. When you're dating someone, give them your report card and your resume and your LinkedIn. Yeah. Read that through, and if you like it, we'll go on our second date. If not, don't call me. Well, that's gonna backfire big time,
Uh-huh.
right?
It is.
Yeah. Yeah. Y- Dating is about the journey of curiosity. And in that exploration, it's a lot of the pleasure of discovering these little tiny things that you enjoy, or maybe you don't, right? Maybe they have night sweats. And after you wake up, what the I'm all wet because you have night sweats? Yeah. Well, or you fart in bed like all night long. Fart, 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 fart. And that's like Yeah, but if you care about that person, maybe you help them with their digestive issues. Right? But you don't put everything in the beginning. That becomes earned and accepted, and oh yeah, that's okay. I can fix that. Yeah. So
Mm,
it's the curiosity, right? AI takes our human drive for perfection, and it just causes it to become a monotonous approach. I think that we need leadership, not in execution of the problem, but in how we even talk to people. Um, yeah, and just having different expressions. People do a lot of things that allow AI to take over. For example, they don't do a good job. So when you compare, the AI is better. Or they're not going to go out of their way. They're just going to if they're doing X, they'll do X. When you learn scientific notation, when it's time to learn scientific notation, let's say eighth grade. Well, what if I wanted to know what he just said about a billionaire multiplied by a million, one times 10 to the sixth, and then that's one times, nine and six, that's one times 10 to the 15th, right? You add the zero. So that's why you add the exponents. Well, that's a quadrillionaire. Great. So
mhm.
now we just combined scientific notation with English expression, and then we put that in the denominator, and oh, that's a femto. Oh, that's a femto. That's great. So then, then you're now you're able to take things and just make it part of a conversation. AI doesn't do that. AI says, or chat, or any GPT system, you type in, and then it spits out. How many times have I talked to that system and other ones, and said, "You're wrong." And then I'll put this other thing in there, and then they'll say, "Yeah, you're right." Sometimes they even said, have you spoke to this Dr. Chiu guy who made the smallest graphenes? He said, "You're right." And so it's not perfect. It'll just go and look for things, and it's constantly learning. But absorption of more and more and more and more information from the past doesn't necessarily, and we know that, create new combinations for the future. Right.
No,
So no, it's just, but do it. Let AI, I mean, it's not even by choice anymore. It's here. So let it do its thing. And you'll even see greater contrast in the future as we lose a billion jobs. We're also going to gain some other things. And then the big question is, do you want to be in a job? All right. Some people jokingly say a job is just over broke, JOB. Um, yeah. And do you know how many people are now leaving Google and Facebook and these places because they saw some of their friends get fired from the downsizing in 2023, but only to find out they can't do that because they also bought the biggest house they could afford. And consequently, you can't just leave your job because you have a mortgage. So that's why a lot of people have now started to say, well, I'm going to be homeless. But homelessness, living in a Tesla, doesn't help you work on building a family. So it's all intertwined, right? All of it's interconnected. And if only our fifth and sixth graders could learn to appreciate what dad and mom really have to go through, um, it's so that they can live in town and so that they can have school, and why the system doesn't work because it's just forced cohesion. Wow, forced cohesion. What a term, right? Mass education, forced cohesion, parochial or public, is just a little bit better, right? It's just still buying in bulk because Costco, right, and Walmart and Whole Foods and other things, you're still buying in bulk. You're just buying different things in bulk because that's what a grocery store is. And then the grocery network, and there's network effects. But there's also societal, when we talk about societal issues,
hmm.
there are numerous ones. You keep asking me, for example, like when I've done many, many startups and many things, is how come you're doing it so slow? Yeah. Why are you doing it this way? Yeah, because I've done all the other ways and I saw how it's not good. If you get enough funding, you're showing yourself the door. because eventually, once you sell 100%, right? Or 50%, if you sell 51%, you no longer have control. So
There you go.
you just bought yourself an opportunity that you're now being fired. You're firing yourself. That's what you're doing, right? So if it's not ready to fire yourself, or you sold equity in a company at a lower valuation, so you left a lot off the table. I've done that. I've done that so many times. So I want to take it slow. And I also don't want to just do everything sequentially. All right. Like for example, you haven't caught up with me, but I'm doing this another startup. But this startup isn't just a startup. It's not a for-profit, it's a nonprofit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It only
What's
takes $60 a year to join, $5 a month, or you can accelerate it and just pay $1,000 and you get a lifetime membership. It's a nonprofit. What does the nonprofit do? So the nonprofit talks about how to help kids, right? It's not box to path where you and I talk about fifth graders and sixth graders. It helps kids to learn from a higher level of deep thinking so that they peer through the window and they can access, NASA. They can access, you know, DARPA. They can access IBM. They can access these leaders, right? Who also realize that there's a problem with mass education. There's an urgency. In fact, if we continue the way we did, the whole thing's going to blow up,
correct, correct.
right? Yeah,
Uh-huh.
so they will get access to this kind of thinking. Imagine if they could speak to Donald Trump, right? You know, and hear and ask questions as a student, and then it's $60 for a year. That's
Mhm.
like affordable. And then you allow others who see the problems, who have made money. They just made all kinds of monies and they need the tax write-off because it's a nonprofit. They can donate 250,000,
Uh-huh.
right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they can help out because there is advantages to public, private, um, homeschool, because you're changing the circle that you put around, but you've got to like screen. So how does public screen? Well, public screens it based on people moving into a town, right? And you're saying, okay, based on these people moving in town and why they like this town and these things that make everyone like this town, that their children will like each other. So that's there's nothing wrong with that, but there's everything wrong with that. Isn't just because you moved in the same town doesn't correlate with whether or not your children would like each other. In fact, most children don't like each other when they start out, especially when there's tension at home.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
No. Yeah. So what's tension at home? I mean, some immigrants come with tension at home anyway because they came from the generation before. Just being an immigrant is going to bring in tension because you know, they're not allowed to practice their culture when they're in this country. So constantly they're going to be upset at home, and then they create children who come in there and want to like dominate. Yeah, they have one goal in mind, which is just to get A. Yeah, and that creates a very different atmosphere than, hey, you know what? Let's make a fine wine. It's the class of 2028. Let's make a fine wine. Let's hope that these grapes come together and some magical combination happens so that when you take this wine, first it's not sour, but it's just so smooth and amazing. And then you say, well, can we just if the grapes weren't good, can we add more grapes in, or do we just remove the grapes and add more new grapes in? No, that's not how you make a fine wine. Well, it's just you put in all the ingredients and then you let the magic happen. It's in the interaction and the chemistry. So then how does that happen? We don't know. How does it happen in the classroom? I think we do have some idea, which is what someone says, how they act, how the teacher responds, all that stuff. We AI this whole thing, and it's just going to become flat, right? We're going to reward the humans who are better at being job workers. Let's not reward those who don't spend a lot of time in school. We'll give them C's, but yet some of those C students become wealthy because they realize they can't go there, so they go into real estate or other things, and then they suddenly are selling insurance. That's happened in the past, but with AI, some of that might go away too because everywhere you go, but you're never going to be smarter than the GPT system about history because it knows everything, and you know the only way to be smarter than the GPT is you're creative,
Uh-huh. Correct.
right? You know things that haven't happened yet. So why do you write an essay for college admissions on what you did in the past? People do that all the time. I tell them that's the biggest mistake you could do. You should write on what you will do for Harvard, what you will do for Penn, what you will do for Stanford, what you will do for Caltech, right? Not what you have done. Stop with the have done.
I see so many people, they just drop off. They get into these tough schools, nothing afterwards. They're just chasing cheap consulting jobs, which pisses me off. These consulting jobs, I was
Now you're angry, right? So of
like,
course, right? Because you're thinking like, I wouldn't have done that if I were in that person's position, right?
yeah, correct.
Well, I'll finish this tonight's interview
Okay.
with a podcast of Lit Nomad, LITNOMAD. So his name is Tyler. He's a retired hedge fund quant and an Ivy League alum. He lives in a Tesla. He's homeless, and he's constantly videoing and about alternative thinking, alternative living. You might want to watch that guy, and then challenge yourself to say, do I want to be like that? Right? Yeah, and he's on a journey right now. He's building up his subscribers. He currently has 11,900 subscribers with only 19 videos, right? And they're watching him. And he's going through, and he's just gonna take care of himself. He doesn't want to contribute to the world. He doesn't want to do any of that. He just wants to have a good time. And he wants to live in the car, and wherever they get free charging for Tesla, that's where he's going to go. And he's just going to go all around the world, all around the country, and then eventually he's going to go all around the world. He's a guy, and he's just going to have pleasure.
Mhm.
Right? Yeah.
Wow, 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 wow.
Yeah. And he went to an Ivy League. So now the problem is if human beings all they did was took care of themselves and did nothing for society, is that wrong?
I would say that's a bit wrong.
A bit wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he's attracting a lot of people saying, "Yeah, I just want to make money and and give the middle finger for everyone else."
That's what we're solving at Boxer Path. We're breaking
Yeah,
that
we're the total opposite of this, right?
total, total
Yeah.
opposite.
Yeah. And then there's others. I mean, he's probably the more extreme one, but there's others who graduated from Stanford and other ones where they just give the middle finger to their Google job, their top jobs, and they go and they just go back to their country. But they're not from their country. They're like their parents were from their country. They came here looking around and they were making, big bucks, and they started seeing people who around them get fired from the downsizing. And then they said, and they video their exit interview, and and they move on. So what happens to these people 5, 10 years from now, right?
Mhm.
Every move you make costs time. And some people say time is your most valuable asset. And I say that is completely wrong. Money is not your most important asset. Time is not your most important asset. It
What is
is
it?
awareness is your most important asset. When you can become aware that you don't want to just have pleasure and fun. Like happiness is different than pleasure, but if you just want to have pleasure and fun, go do it. Go do it and see, and but raise your awareness when you're doing it. Don't just do it and not be aware. Become so aware that you find out you need to discover meaning in life. And why do I know this so definitively? Is because all these ancient writings talk about the same thing. This has been done before. It's almost like code. Don't code.
People chase
You know,
cheap
right?
entertainment, even though they want more. I find it very ironic. So many people they want to be Elon Musk, they want to be Tony Stark, yet they chase cheap entertainment. And once they realize that it's not even that fun, this cheap entertainment, it's boring. Six Flags boring. And once you
Right.
that,
That is what that whole nonprofit is about. The nonprofit is about ennui, ENNUI. The topic of becoming bored and listless and saying, why is this happening to me? Why am I suffering from this? Well, let me show you why. It's normal. Ennui is the key ingredient to becoming a super ultra creative person. If you experience listlessness and boredom, then join and come into this network, because what you're about to see is that is the essence of becoming someone else, someone bigger. You're tapping into why you are here, as opposed to, I'm just a charging plug or a cog for some corporate so that I could be drained like a battery and thrown in the garbage. When you have that boredom feeling and none of these pleasures and these little things do anything, that you should hold on to that feeling, because that separates you. We'll all experience it. Some people get it when they're in their 40s, 50s, 60s. If you're getting it in your teenage years, you need to be protected.
correct.
Yeah, you need to be protected, because those types of individuals can move mountains. And the
Uh,
only way to do that is to give them. You can't you can't profit off of them. These particular individuals will be more powerful than the president of the United States if you collected them together. And that's why the nonprofit, it's called Mirth Academy, M for moon, and then Earth for Earth, right? So, well, and Mirth Academy is about collecting these individuals and giving them protection.
mhm.
Yeah,
Wow, wow, wow.
yeah. And having others who've made it donate to provide protection for them, because you lose these people, and the other ones are just like, they're just going to be lost. They need this other leadership, and that's why. Oh, by the way, this person that you should watch his podcast, right? He was making 435,000 a year, and he quit. So he has a video on that too.
Hmm.
And he just quit. He quit. He has $4 million in the bank. He totally exposes where it is, and he chooses to live within this Tesla.
Wow.
Yeah. So most people who watch that are going to say, I want to be like that guy, right?
Uh-huh.
Box to path is such a higher level, so much higher, that most people will say this and say, why? Why would I want to give to others? Because only through giving to others can you achieve true happiness. If you just look at yourself, well, that's only, you count all the places you've been to, how much money you have, what school you went to. That um that is actually classically um doesn't work. You may have experienced that before. You get something really nice that you always wanted, you get it, and then and it only lasts for a day or two. Imagine if you got into Harvard, you tell all your friends, but you can't call them a second round, tell them again. Some people do that, by the way, and they tell them the third time, they forget,
Then
and
they
then you
lose.
have no friends left, right? Because see, you don't. It really is meaningless. These titles and other things. People will say, "Oh, you're saying that because you got these." No, I didn't get them before. And then, but I've kept challenging myself over and over again. If I get this, if I do this startup, and I get funded, this I'll be so happy. No, you won't. You will, but you won't. Afterwards, that's the beginning of the downhill ride to the unhappiness. And so, why did it happen? Getting funded means that you're now going to have less you're gonna have someone telling you what to do. So, and then they could all vote together, and then that could be the end of whatever big dream you had, because it takes 20 years to get to that dream, but you only, by getting all that funding, you only have 5 years. So before they let you go. So yeah, I mean, welcome to creating your own exit, right? In fact,
Yeah.
they call it an exit strategy, but it's really getting yourself fired and losing your dream. And then now maybe you become an angel and or venture capital and you judge others, right?
Hmm.
It's a sick cycle. Don't fall for that. Raise your awareness, and then you'll be able to see the answers without having to get tricked and spend all those decades.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Don't lie to yourself. That's the key. Don't ever lie to yourself. Raise your awareness and you won't lie to yourself.
You won't. You won't.
Good.
People need to realize
Um,
you work hard, you can get it.
yeah. So honest conversations, that's what it's all about. And thank you for being you.
Thank you for your time, Dr. Chiu.
You're welcome. Good night.